so fast. But the main thing that kept flashing in my head was my mom and my dad. And I was like, Stefan kept saying, "Mommy, you okay? It's okay." And then I started losing my, I couldn't breathe. I felt like I couldn't. It was a normal day. Was working that day, and but it was windy. I remember leaving work early because I had a doctor's appointment, just a regular checkup. I was communicating with my sister, letting her know, like, oh my God, this wind was unbearable, but we were still, walking through it like a normal afternoon. And then I went, at the time I was with my aunt in Palm. And that night, it got brittle. The wind was really going really at a very fast pace. And I knew something wasn't right in my heart, but I was like, okay, it happened before. We had wind before. But I kept it in touch with my sister who was staying here with her kids. So we kept in touch. It was about 8 o'clock. It started escalating more and more. And at the time, I remember sitting on the couch at my aunt's house, and we were watching the Palisade fire. And we were on TV watching it, and 2 hours later, I got a text from a dear friend of ours saying there's a fire that started in Eaton Canyon. And if I were you, I would start pack. And I'm like, nah, so we're just thinking. I text my sister, and then she said, yeah, she did tell me. And so throughout the night, we were just, back and forth with each other, seeing what's going on. But at the time, the fire kept getting higher and higher. And so I told my aunt, who is, she's wearing oxygen, and she was sitting on one of the recliner seat, and I knew she would need more help. And so, but at the time, my sister keep texting me, and I remember saying to her, I think you should just go ahead and pack some bags for the kids. We were just communicating like that. And she did, and she put the stuff in her car. And at the same time, with my aunt, which she needed my help, so I was up there. And so we started packing something for the night. And so my sister, she kept texting me. She said, look outside. The fire is getting higher, bigger and bigger. And I went to the window at my aunt's house, and I looked, and I saw it. And I told my aunt, I'm like, that's not looking right. And because she was kind of giving me a way, saying it's okay, it'll be okay, because we had that before. We had fire. We had, it would never come that close to us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I called in between that. And I said, are you guys okay?
Yeah.
And I think that's when you were telling me, I think we will be. And that's probably because of what Jerry
exactly.
told you. Okay,
yes.
Yeah, that makes sense now.
Yeah, so we're saying that. And then so I'm kind of like believing her, but at the same time, something in me kept saying, just pack something overnight. Mm-hmm. So I went and did that. And at the same time, my sister kept on my ear saying that fire is getting, stronger. But at the time, she was feeling like, you know what, we're going to ride it out. I think it's going to be okay. And then she was assuring her, the kids, my nieces and nephew, that everything's going to be okay, But then around, I think it was about maybe 10 or 11, we noticed that it was getting pretty tense. And so I made sure I told my aunt, she had a lot of medicine to pack. I said, let's go ahead and pack this medicine, and she did. And so And there
was no alert at that time either, right?
And there was no alert.
Yeah.
We didn't get any alert.
Yeah.
We were just, watching TV, and then power went out. So we didn't know, we weren't listening. We didn't know what to do. And so I remember that same night, Mimi was in here. My sister was cooking. And my aunt had a little, like a light bulb, but it's, you order that from Amazon and you can turn it on like a light. And so she said, why don't you run it down to your sister, because the kids was doing their homework and there was no light. So I remember leaving the house, came down here, gave it to her. She had it in her kitchen. Everything was good, but it was windy. The wind was, really hard. So I went back to my aunt, and so we were staying in touch with my sister. And then I just went in there and said, Auntie, I know what you said, but I said, let's be ready, because we don't want to wait at the last minute, because we know sometime, things can just happen and we don't have no control of it. By then it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and she said, it's okay. Then she stayed on the recliner seat. She did not go in her room because it was blackout. So I went in my room, and we just kind of lay down, and I fell asleep. And I heard her. She called me. She said, "We gotta evacuate." It was about by then it was about 2:30 in the morning, and then my sister was trying to get to me, but I didn't get her text. But she went on and got her kids in the car, and left. And so I got up when my aunt said that, and I think we heard. I said, "Auntie, how did you hear? We don't have any power. Who gave us that? Who said that? To evacuate?" And she said it was through the Alexa, and it was kind of weird for me because Alexa was not working either. But it was like evacuate immediately, and she said, "Let's go." And so I got up and I started getting things on. So I don't know how she got out that recliner because she couldn't put it down. And so she just scooped herself down while I was trying to get my little dog. And by then, I believe my sister had already, was trying to get a hold of me, and she had already gone to my son.
Yeah.
She said she was
and
heading.
keep in mind, our aunt, she is like on a scooter, on a motor scooter. So like she can't really normally operate on her own. She needs like some assistance. But the fact that she was able to still gather
Scoop
herself
herself,
together
yeah.
and get on going was just miraculous.
Yeah, it was
So, yeah.
everything that happened that night. I
Yeah.
just believe that God was with us. I
Yeah.
just believe it.
Because
Because when we got out, it was the ambush, what do you call those things that was shooting?
embers.
Embers, yeah. We can actually see them. They were just flying everywhere. So she was able to get in her car, and I had parked my truck in front of her car. And so I went and got my dog, and she was already sitting in her car. So I got into the Jeep, and something just told me to go back. There's something, I don't know why I went back. And so for the life of me now, I know. I went to the room, and I'm looking around. It wasn't my laptop. It wasn't my professional camera. And I grabbed it. It was my Bible. I don't know. I felt that I needed to have that. And it was a story that I will keep sharing because I believed I went back for that. So I went in, I grabbed it, and I ran in and didn't even think of anything else. I just grabbed it and went back to the Jeep. And my aunt's like, "Let's go." And so I got on, and then we left. So by then, I was able to communicate with my sister as she was going to my son. And she said, "I'm already on the freeway." And we were just heading down to Lincoln. And so we got to the convention center. That's where we stayed, at the Pasadena Convention Center. And so because she needed my help, trying to get her to park, and everything was in slow motion, but at least we got out. It was smoke everywhere when we left the house. And like I said, the embers was flying, and we were just one of the, I believe, God help us through it, because they could have shoot at us or whatever, but we could actually see them, because the wind was just amazingly just unbearable. So we weren't able to get in the car,
Yeah.
left, got down to the, and I had my other aunt that was already met us there.
Yeah.
And so we stayed there until we got there about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. And we were just like, "Well, we'll be back."
Yeah.
My sister,
Everybody thought the same thing.
We'll be back.
Yeah.
Never in a million years that we thought.
It was gonna be gone, yeah.
gone.
When I called and reached out to my families, who I knew were all being like in that vicinity where the fires were happening, I only found out through social media, because I was staying in my apartment in Montebello at the time. So I checked in on my mom, and she just shared that, yeah, we're just watching it and stuff. And then I checked in on my other aunt, said the same thing. And then I spoke to my aunt Naomi, Mimi, we call her, and she was like, the smoke is getting really bad, but I think we can weigh it out, And I was like, well, my place is here if you need anything, or if you guys need a place to just, be safe from and stuff. And so I offered that to my mom too as well, just anything I can do. And so I ended up just getting a knock on my window really late at night from my little cousin, and that's when I was like, okay, so I didn't even know what to think. I was like woken up out of it, and I didn't know really what to connect yet until the morning of, after I've like let them into my apartment, let them sleep. We had a blow up mattress for them and everything. And it wasn't until that morning of I got a phone call from a neighbor of ours that called me and told me that he's seen all the homes and they're all gone. And that's how I found out. And I had to relay that information to everybody, that all of their houses were gone. That's exactly what happened. And so just being in that position to have to share that, our homes were completely gone. It was just so many. It was so layered that I don't even know how to put it in words. But it was really hard having to break it down to everyone that the homes that we all lived in and have traditions in were no longer standing, and it was just unbelievable, to be honest. We had to see it to believe it, and that's when the pictures came through, and we were completely shocked. The unbelievable, just seeing that this is what is left after such a horrible fire that happened.
So here I am sitting in one of those, they give you those what do they call those cot.
Well, she was at the
I was at the
she was at
pathway.
the convention center where they were holding everybody, and you were just like, I was on the phone with her, and I I don't. I mean, I believe I told you before I
Yeah.
told Naomi.
Yes, you did.
And
You said
so
because Nimi was still asleep.
yeah,
And so I'm sitting there next to my aunt. We were talking. I had just left to use the restroom and came back and got the call, and Stefan's like, Mommy, Mama's house is gone. And at that moment, I didn't know, I felt like, I didn't know what to say. I felt numb. And so my aunt was sitting across me. She looked at me and said, everything okay? And the only thing I could do is just start bursting into tears. And I started having flashback. And I was like, and I think about my sister with the kids. We just had a wonderful Christmas. Everything that we had, everything was going so fast. But the main thing that kept flashing in my head was my mom and my dad. And I was like, Stefan kept saying, Mommy, you okay? It's okay. I started losing I couldn't breathe. I felt like I could. But the only thing came to me was my mom and dad walking to that step with us, with the three of us, opening their door and seeing the first home. They are never own a home, from Haiti until here, just renting. And so when this realtor of ours, a good friend of ours, helped us with this and watching, walking in so proud, and we walk in the front, the living room, and my dad, he has this dance that he always does since I was a little girl, and he was just open his arm and he started dancing. That memory, it was such and it just to know that it's gone, and it just really, it really touched me. So my aunt was holding me. I said, it's gone, it's gone. That's all I can remember saying to her.